Hey everybody, welcome to episode, what is it, 64 I think, which means we've been going for well over a year here at Reading Smoke with Phil Joseph. Appreciate everybody being out there. Looks like we got, checking down here, looks like we got a live stream with excellent connection, so we're all good to go 5x5. If you happen to be tuning in live, then go ahead and hit me up in the chat. I'll see if I can respond if you've got any questions or whatever. Today it's not a real long video today. We're going to look at just some first in, and it's always kind of nice. I think we look at these things, we look at these videos. Again, this is from Fire and Film, so their link is in the show notes. If you haven't checked out their site, go over there, like, subscribe, that kind of stuff. They're putting some great video out. Looks like most of it's from the Northeast. So a couple of different things here just coming in. We're going to look at, we're looking at this building here now. I don't know a lot about the construction in this zone, but this looks to me like maybe it was a single family residence at one time, or it could have just been built as apartments. But what I can see even from right here is that there's a stairway coming out from the floor two, and so that's telling me this is a multifamily right away. Have pretty significant, if we look at volume, velocity, density, color, there's two main areas we're going to look at when we get the video going. We'll show them both sort of independently. One is this down here on floor one. Obviously the entry door is right over here, and then the second is up here in the attic cockloft area. But if we look here, we can already see pretty good, I'd say pretty probably in the moderate range for volume, right? So not tons of volume, but moderate volume here. Velocity is good though, because you can see that there's pretty good turbulence in this smoke even as it comes out and goes up. And then density is pretty thick. It stays pretty thick. It totally obscures the building here, right? So, you know, not super heavy density, but I'd say pretty thick. And the color is in that end of the gray scale. There may be a little bit of filtering going on, not sure here, but up here we also have probably low volume here. Velocities turbulent, right? So we have turbulent velocity, and it's relatively thin, and in the gray scale here, on the sort of on the wider end of the gray scale, but in the middle. But this turbulence, right? The velocity is what we're going to key on. So if we look, let's get it rolling here. And this is just as they're arriving, right? So we got a good look here, pretty significant turbulence, and a little bit of pumping here, right? So where it's kind of coming out a little bit, just a little bit. I'd love to be able to see if that door is open. And one of the reasons is I'd want to see if that door is not open, and this is pretty significant velocity coming out from these bases. If the door is open, that's telling me I have a really nice bidirectional flow. And the fire itself, if I see that door's open and the bidirectional flow is high, I'm thinking that the fire is pretty far back in this building. That would be my assessment. Still good velocity, right? It's lost some heat in its travel through the building, but still good velocity coming out means you got a pretty good working fire back there. The other thing I want to say, this building is probably the same depth or close to it as this one. This one looks like, if I look at this one, right, it looks about the same. That one looks about the same, so there's probably an alley back there. Maybe it's bigger than that. I don't know yet. And we're only limited because of the video, right? And if you were there, when you arrive at a place like this, it wouldn't be that tough to pop out and at least get the 270, be able to look down that Bravo side and see what's going on down there. But we're only looking at this from what we can see here. So we know we have a fire on floor one. I can see this from the basement, and when I look down the Bravo side, I'd confirm, but since there's pretty good smoke coming out here and nothing here, that's indicating to me that the fire did not start in the basement, right? If it started in the basement and then extended up and up, I'd expect to see something from this, maybe not right here, that might just be under the porch, but definitely down this side, I'd see clear sign of smoke coming from the basement as well if the fire was this advanced, right? So I'm ruling out basement fire relatively quickly, primary fire on floor 1, and then it's extending. Now, the other thing, let's go back and let's look at this smoke up here. And what we want to look at here, right, is what's the velocity there and the color. And it's even though it's got some gray though, it's still coming out. It's reasonably dark, and there's pretty good velocity coming out here. And if you look along the sides, right, all the way up along this side, you got smoke pushing out from the cracks and seams here. Occasionally it looks like it's just coming from here, but even when the smoke's gone here, there's still just a little bit. And now we can see that the smoke's coming out around this window as well, right? And so if we think about what's going on here, primary fire floor 1, if there's smoke coming out of these windows, that means that the smoke has got access. It tells me that it's probably in all of the public spaces, and the door to this room is open. And in addition to that, you've got good velocity coming out of the cockloft attic already, right? So at a minimum, I'm thinking here that you have a fire on floor 1 and a fire in the cockloft, with smoke having access to the entire occupancy, all the open spaces, and any door that's open, which the smoke coming out this window tells us that, right? So we have a really significant event in a multi-family residential. And so even if we were pulling in here, my organization in Seattle, I'd be looking at this and I'd be saying, look, man, I need at least one, if not, I need an attack line and a backup line here. I'm going to need an attack line and a backup line up here, and I'm probably going to need some sort of line on floor number 2, right? But let's just go with the attack lines on the primary fire floor and the extension floor. That's 4 lines, right? And that doesn't even count the truck work. We're going to have plenty of searches to do. These types of buildings often have significant forcible entry. I'm going to want to get people up to the roof and get that cockloft open. And so there's a lot of work to do here. And in Seattle, even with 5 engines and 2 trucks coming, it's beyond the scope of the first alarm. And I would expect the first officer and or the first arriving chief officer to look at this and immediately call for a second alarm. That's my history, and the way I'm doing that is just thinking about fire and fire, right? I have a minimum of 2 floors on fire in a multifamily occupancy, and so the resourcing requirements are just really, really high, right? And again, this is, we're looking at 15, 20 seconds of video. If this was your jurisdiction, you'd be familiar. This is a pretty main street here. I'm guessing that, if you lived in this town, if you worked in this town, you'd have a pretty good idea what's going on in here, from EMS alarms and parades and all that other kind of stuff, right? You'd have a reasonably good idea of what the neighborhood is going to hold for you. And in fact, we're not going to see more of this video, right? We're just looking at the volume, velocity, density, color, moderate to high volume, turbulent, relatively thick, and in the grayscale, in the blacks and the grays, both here and up in the second. And then if we're looking at it, it's coming out around the cracks and seams on the edges and from around this window. I mean, think about how much velocity, how much heat and energy and pressure, right, was that pressure's creating to be able to have a fire start here, extend the smoke up through the space, and then create enough pressure to go around the cracks and seams of this window. This window is closed, right? So it's pushing out. So a significant fire from a short video clip. Okay, there is a lot more to this video. If you go to Fire and Film site, like I said, there's a link in the show notes. There's a lot more that you can see here, and it's a little chopped up. So you have to understand there's always pieces. Whenever the video cuts, there's always a piece missing, and you don't know how long, what that time element is. But we can learn a lot just from this first 15-20 seconds of video and understanding from reading smoke, volume, velocity, density, color, right? What's going on at least the scope and scale. Where is the fire? Well, the fire is for sure on floor 1 and in the caulk loft. Okay, how big is the fire? This is a significant fire, particularly if this door is open and this smoke has this velocity at this neutral plane level. The fire is going to be closer to the back of that structure, and particularly also remember, if that door is open, already got really good access to ventilation. It means it's going to grow pretty quickly, and we have an independent problem of a fire working in the attic. If you put this fire out immediately, this is not going to go away, right? And if we think about it, this is going to take us a minute, minute and a half, 2 minutes to get in here and really tap this. That fire is going to have made good progress in that time. Remember, attics are built to be ventilated, right? So there's a lot going on here in a relatively short period of time. And if you train your mind and you train your eye to see this volume, velocity, density, color, figure out where the fire is, where it's going, what you're going to do about it, and how much help you're going to need, that's reading smoke. All right, so thanks again for joining me this week. As always, I try to have new content here every Thursday at 1400. I'll tell you, I missed last week. I got caught in some of that travel craziness that went on with all the storms and stuff. But I'm happy to be here this week, and happy to have you watching the videos, liking and subscribing. I'll be out in Pennsylvania next week, and then there's some more classes on the calendar. You can check those out in the show notes as well. All right, so for Reading Smoke with Phil Jose, episode 64, I'm Phil Jose, and I'm out.